Buddha was understood as a human that gives every human practitioner access to the same level of ability and enlightenment. However, he also took on some magical powers.
You have power of levitation.
How is he doing that?
Deep in the remote, icy mountains of the Himalayas, something unbelievable has been discovered. Ancient monks thought to be long gone, found alive in hidden monasteries. According to local reports, these monks have been living in silence and isolation for centuries.
An ancient Buddhist monastery built into the side of a cliff 4,000 meters high in the middle of the Himalayas.
Guarding something so mysterious that experts are now deeply concerned. What are they protecting? Some say it could be sacred texts, ancient powers, or even a gateway to something the world isn't ready for. The discovery has shocked scientists, spiritual leaders, and governments alike. Why now? And what secret has kept them hidden all these years? The truth may be terrifying. The shocking discovery. Reports have confirmed that some ancient monks have been found alive in remote Himalayas in the most unbelievable fashion. Their existence was reported to be shrouded in mystery and totally different from the way most humans operate. Experts reportedly carried out their research, giving their different thoughts on their activities and what they know about these ancient monks. There were also claims that they might be guarding things that seem to be beyond ordinary.
What if I told you that some monks hold secrets so powerful, so mysterious, that they've been hidden from the world for centuries?
And not openly known to men. Now the real question is, what are the secrets behind these monks, and what possibly could they be guarding? Before we dive deep into the heart of the story, let's take a closer look at the history of ancient monks. Stay tuned. This might just be the beginning of what is about to be rev. A monk is widely known as a cisgender male who chooses to live a monastic life. It's a way of living, which reportedly involves making vows of poverty and celibacy, all with the goal of growing closer to God and doing good works. Sources say that monks may live either in quiet, isolated places or in shared communities with other monks. Historians note that the first known monks appeared around the 5th century BCE, mostly within the Hindu religion.
It's around the 5th century BC. We are following the life of a young prince. He was born in the Indian subcontinent. His way of life attracted kings, and pretty soon a new religion took shape, that of Buddhism.
These early monks were often solitary, owning nothing and avoiding close personal relationships. Around the same time, Buddhist monastic life also began to develop. Both religions emphasized simple, celibate, and deeply spiritual living. According to scholars, Christian monasticism began later, around the 3rd or 4th century CE in Israel. It started as a response to what some saw as growing worldliness and corruption within the Christian faith. At first, Christian monks reportedly lived in an unorganized way without shared rules or teachings. Experts say that over time, the church helped create structure, unity, and purpose for these early communities. One key figure in Christian monasticism was Saint Benedict of Nursia, who lived during the late 5th and early 6th century CE. It was reported that he wrote a set of guidelines called the Rule of Benedict, which became the foundation for many monastic communities in the West.
The Rule of Benedict can be inspiring for not only for us as monks, but for anyone, any Christian in the world.
Catholicism states that the word monasticism comes from the Greek word monakos, which means to be alone or solitary. This reportedly reflects how the first monks lived in silence and isolation. However, experts clarify that the purpose of monasticism is not just to be alone, but to lead a life that is fully devoted to God. It involves prayer, self-sacrifice, and, in many cases, living together in community. Although monasticism is closely linked with Catholicism, it is not unique to Christianity. Historians confirm that other ancient religions practiced monastic lifestyles long before Christianity began. In pre-Buddhist India, for example, Vedic seers known as rishis lived in remote communities away from society. Around the 5th to 6th century BCE, Buddhist sanghas were formed.
People who have learned and practiced Buddhist teachings and actually attain some of its goals. We call the community of such people the Sangha.
These groups of monks followed very strict rules that were surprisingly similar to the rules later used in Christian monastic life. Research also shows that early forms of monasticism existed in places like Alexandria and Roman Judea. The Essenes, a Jewish group known from the Dead Sea Scrolls, followed an ascetic lifestyle focused on prayer and poverty. Another group, the Therapeuti, lived in much the same way. Some scholars suggest that these groups laid the groundwork for Christian monasticism. One author even stated that the Dead Sea Scrolls describe community life very similar to what was later taught by Saint Benedict. The Bible also shares examples of monastic living. Christians believed that Saint John the Baptist reportedly lived alone in the desert and preached there. Though he died before the formal beginning of Christianity, early Christians were believed to have followed a lifestyle similar to his one of self-denial and devotion. Overall, sources agree that monasticism has existed in many forms across different cultures and religions. Though the practices may differ, the heart of monastic life remains the same, leaving behind worldly things to focus fully on spiritual growth and service. The existence of monks seems to be something worth looking at, but one question that strikes so hard is, why did monks decide to live an isolated life? And is there anything sinister about it? We're about to find out. Monastic isolation. Why some monks vanish for decades. Reports have it that most Buddhist monks do not grow or store their own food. According to historical accounts, this practice dates back to the time of the Buddha. The Buddha had decided that monks and nuns should not store, grow, or cut their own food. Experts said this rule kept the monastic community in regular contact with lay people, who would provide food as offerings. They noted that if the community felt a monk or nun was not behaving properly, they could simply refuse to give food. Researchers reported that during the Buddha's lifetime, monks and nuns traveled constantly, usually in groups for safety. They did not have permanent homes. However, during the rainy season, when traveling became difficult, they would stay in one place for a rainy season retreat. These retreats often involved large groups staying together in one location. It was reported that when the Buddha traveled, he often had a large number of followers with him. Some ancient texts even claimed he traveled with up to 5,000 monks, though scholars explained this number simply meant a very large group. They added that these large groups stayed close to the Buddha so they could hear his teachings regularly. As a result, they traveled mainly between large cities that could support them with food. One such city, Pataliputra, was mentioned as the Buddha's frequent destination. At the time, it had a population of around 500,000 and was considered the largest city in the world. Because of this, many have referred to Buddhism as an urban religion. Modern reports confirmed that even today, cities like Bangkok have hundreds.
It is in 1782 that Bangkok became the capital city of Thailand. With its 200 years of prosperity,
The temple of the Emerald Buddha is located in the east wing of the Grand Palace.
If not thousands, of monasteries. When food donations exceed what the monks need, the extra is stored by the monastery and distributed to poor families. However, it was made clear that this stored food belongs to the monastery as an institution and is managed by a lay committee, not by the monks themselves. It was also noted that in all branches of Buddhism, there are hermit monks or nuns who live in isolation to focus on deeper meditation. These practitioners are said to be on retreat, a temporary period of intensive spiritual practice often suggested by their teacher. Experts mentioned that intense meditation can make a person's energy very sensitive, so outside interactions are limited. In some cases, if their tradition doesn't allow them to store or grow food, rules are slightly relaxed. Usually, someone nearby drops food off a few times a week without disturbing the hermit. These retreats are typically done in huts near monasteries or nunneries, so the practitioner's well-being can be monitored. One story shared involved a nun who was meditating in a cave above the snow line. When heavy snow blocked access to the cave, she decided she would continue her retreat no matter what, even if it meant starving. Fortunately, someone reached her with food just a few days later. In the Theravada tradition, observers reported that monks and nuns often live in forest monasteries. These are small, scattered huts where stricter practice is done. These monasteries are usually near villages so the monks can receive food. Often, these forest centers are branches of larger city monasteries, and lay people also retreat there for spiritual training. In the Tibetan tradition, reports noted that monks and nuns often go on 3-year solo retreats, following strict programs given by their teachers. During these long retreats, they are usually allowed to store some food. However, it was pointed out that no matter how long a retreat is, it is always expected that the person will eventually return to the wider community. It was said that in Tibetan culture, doing 3 major retreats is usually the limit. After that, teachers often ask the monks or nuns to come back to society and begin teaching others. In some rare cases, monks didn't want to leave their retreats, but after receiving 3 letters of request from the Dalai Lama, they finally agreed.
Tenzin Gyatso, better known as the Dalai Lama, is the surprisingly social media-savvy spiritual leader of the Tibetan people.
Although the Dalai Lama does not directly control them, most monks would never ignore a request from a senior teacher like him. Now, several reports have emerged about some ancient monks that were found alive in remote Himalayas, surviving even in the most unfriendly of environments. What are these monks about? Brace up for a far more exciting revelation that will put you on the edge of your seat. The monk living in Tibet's harshest conditions and their survival. It has been widely reported that Tibet was once home to thousands of vibrant Buddhist monasteries. However, in 1959, following an uprising by Tibetans against China's occupation, nearly all these monasteries were destroyed by Chinese military forces. Sources revealed that the practice of Buddhism was banned, and the Dalai Lama was forced to flee into exile. Reports noted that in March of that year, Chinese tanks attacked the 540-year-old Sarai Monastery in Lhasa, killing hundreds of monks and destroying sacred texts and ancient artifacts collected over centuries. Eyewitness accounts stated that thousands of survivors managed to escape, crossing dangerous Himalayan mountain passes into neighboring India. Many of them had only thin robes and light footwear to protect themselves from the freezing conditions. Reports confirmed that the Sarai Monastery was later re-established near Mysore in southern India in a bid to preserve their legacy. Today, it is reportedly the home to around 5,000 Buddhist monks living in exile. Some of them had survived the 1959 destruction, while many others were born in exile and have never seen their ancestral homeland. According to sources, the way of life of the Tibetan monk provides an intimate look into their monastic community. It highlights how the monks continue to preserve the legacy of the original Sarai Monastery. Filled with over 100 duotone photographs, it captures both the sacred ceremonies and the everyday lives of the monks. Observers described it as deeply moving and showing the monks compassion, simplicity, joy, and spiritual focus. In July 2012, 7 Tibetan monks from the Gaden Jangtse Monastery in India reportedly visited Canton, Ohio, as part of their 11-city World Peace Cultural Tour across North America. Their mission, according to organizers, was to raise awareness of Tibetan Buddhism and culture, promote peace, and encourage compassion and kindness toward all living beings. Reports stated that the Merging Hearts Holistic Center in Canton sponsored the monks during their visit. The host of the monks shared that they initially volunteered to accommodate 1 or 2 of them. However, upon their arrival, it became clear that all 7 monks and their driver needed lodging at the same place. Despite the surprise, the host welcomed them without hesitation. It was also reported that the head monk, Geshe, is not only a spiritual leader, but also a doctor of Tibetan medicine. He co-founded the Gajang Tibetan Herbal Medical Center in 2004, which serves both monastic communities and local Indian villages. Sources noted that Geshe has provided treatment to thousands of patients both at the monastery and while traveling abroad. During his time in Canton, he offered private consultations at the Holistic Center. Witnesses recalled that his appointment schedule filled up quickly, but no one was turned away. Those who experienced his medical practice reported that Tibetan medicine relies on an advanced method called pulse reading. According to accounts, during a consultation, Geshe would calmly close his eyes, gently touch the fingers, palms, and wrists of the patient, and then accurately describe their health condition. He would then prescribe natural herbal remedies. Patients described his presence as peaceful, unhurried, and deeply focused. During their stay, the monks also created an intricate sand mandala at the center. Sources explained that a mandala is a sacred design made from colored sand.
1 grain of sand at a time, the Tibetan monks create what is called a sand mandala.
A sand mandala is a 2D rendering of a 3D palace.
Used in meditation and spiritual teaching. Traditionally, only monks in monasteries were allowed to make and observe mandalas. However, the Dalai Lama decided to bring this sacred art to the public so more people could learn about Tibetan culture. Observers reported that the mandala was constructed slowly, 1 grain of sand at a time. The final design was highly complex and built in layers. It was noted that the experience of watching the mandala form was not just artistic, but it was a deeply meditative and spiritual event. Sources added that meditation is a key practice in Tibetan Buddhism. The monks had been meditating for most of their lives. The host and their family were able to meditate alongside the monks, both in their home and at merging hearts. Witnesses described this experience as amazing. Each morning, the monks held a puja in Geshe's room, a ritual involving chanting, incense burning, and deep meditation that lasted about 40 minutes. It was said that this filled the house with peace and joy. After the puja, the monks would prepare their breakfast and ride in their white van, which was humorously nicknamed the Monk Mobile or the Mobile Monastery. Those who lived with the monks shared that the monks were always smiling, laughing, and bringing joy to everyone around them. Their happiness, it was said, was contagious. They were informal, friendly, and made themselves feel at home. Reports revealed that the monks spent time outdoors, played pickup basketball in the driveway, and walked around the neighborhood. The host jokingly mentioned that they had sent a message to their neighbors ahead of time to be on the lookout for bald Asian men in colorful robes. Further reports stated that the monks live at the Gaden Jangtse Monastery in southern India, which houses about 1,400 monks. Geshe, the head monk, was born in Bhutan and joined the monastery at age 10. The other monks were all born in India, after their families escaped Tibet during the Chinese occupation. Most of them also joined the monastery between the ages of 10 and 12. The host family expressed that their time with the monks was one of the most powerful and life-changing experiences they ever had. They added that their children and grandchildren were also touched by the monks' kindness and received their blessings during the visit. But beneath the monks' laughter, simplicity, and quiet routines lies a deeper mystery, one that has sparked the curiosity of many. While their presence brings peace and joy, some experts and locals believe they are also protectors of something far more profound. What are the monks guarding? So deeply in the Himalayas? Hold on, because the best part is coming up. The rise of Japan's warrior monks. Historians explain that warrior monks first appeared in Japan during the Heian period. At that time, there were serious political arguments between Buddhist temples. These disputes mostly came from disagreements over who should be appointed to the top temple positions in the Sokan system, which included important roles like the zasu. It was reported that for the next 400 years, many of these feuds led to violence. The fighting mainly involved major temples such as Todaiji, Kofuku-ji, Enryaku-ji, and Mi-dera, located in Kyoto, Nara, and Omi. Records showed that the first known armed protest happened in the year 949. During that event, 56 monks from Todaiji protested outside the home of a Kyoto official because they were unhappy about a certain appointment. Experts noted that protests like these continued throughout the 10th century and sometimes turned violent. Some of these clashes even resulted in people being killed. In 970, after a conflict between Enryaku-ji Temple and Kyoto's Yasaka Shrine, Enryaku-ji reportedly formed the first standing army of warrior monks. However, researchers were not entirely sure if this army was made up of real monks or hired fighters. This was because Ryogen, the abbot who created this army, also created a strict set of rules. These rules banned monks from leaving Mount Hiei during their 12-year training, from carrying weapons, and from covering their faces. From 981 onwards, there were a number of armed conflicts between Enryaku-ji and Mi-dera. These two temples led different subsects of the Tendai school of Buddhism. The fights were mostly caused by disagreements over political roles and disrespectful behavior. Often, one temple would get angry if a leader from a rival group was chosen to head their own temple. Experts said that while these disputes sometimes paused for decades, once even for 40 years, they kept coming back throughout the 11th and 12th centuries. As time went on, the armies grew larger and the violence became worse. In 1121 and again in 1141, monks from Enryaku-ji burned Mi-dera to the ground. Other temples were also drawn into these conflicts. At one point, Enryaku-ji and Mi-dera joined forces to fight against Kofuku-ji. On another occasion, they both turned against Kiyomizu-dera. Scholars pointed out that the rise of warrior monks, or Sohei, happened at the same time that the Tendai school became more powerful. These monks protected temple lands, scared off rival Buddhist groups, and helped spread their own teachings, especially during the Kamakura period. It was also reported that the Sohei were similar to the European lay brothers who happened to be members of religious orders who were not always fully ordained. Like the Teutonic Order or other warrior monks in the Holy Roman Empire, the Sohei were part of large monastic communities. They did not act as individuals or small temple groups. Instead, they fought as members of wide networks of monasteries and training centers. One of the most well-known Sohei temples was Enryaku-ji on Mount Hiei, near Kyoto. Kofuku-ji in Nara also had a large force of warrior monks. What do you think about the story of the monks? Do share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video showing